Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what will likely be the penultimate mock draft on this channel as we get closer and closer to the actual draft. Today, I wanted to explore a hypothetical scenario where the New York Giants trade up to number 1. There have been a number of reports that have come out during the combine that say the Giants are in active talks to come up and get that pick, and the Titans are not immediately shutting it down. So this is something that we could see in the coming weeks, and I think it's interesting enough to talk about as we go through some of the other reports and stories and players rising through the combine process. So at number 1 in this hypothetical, the New York Giants are selecting Cam Ward. Now, this goes against a lot of the other mock drafts I've done on the channel. I am not very excited about this quarterback class. I have not been overly supportive of this quarterback class, but at the end of the day, it is a quarterback's league, and if you think you got the right guy, you may as well go up and get him. So this, to me, feels like it would be kind of a desperate move by a GM and a coach that are very likely to be fired by December if they don't start winning. So will this pay out? Who knows? It's a very interesting move for sure, and I think it is something that would definitely generate a lot of buzz going into the draft if we do see this happen. So I feel bad a little bit for Cam Ward ending up in this position, but, maybe there are worse options for him. Cam Ward is a guy that I think is mostly sold on his physical tools. He's got the arm. He's not overly accurate. I do worry about some of his mental skill sets. I don't think he's the best processor. I think he has some decision-making questions, but most rookies do. So we'll see. Yeah, there's entirely a world that exists where I am proven completely wrong about Cam Ward as a quarterback, but we'll have to wait and see. At number 2, the Cleveland Browns. From what I understand at the Combine, the Cleveland Browns are really big on Shedeur Sanders. It sounds like they really like the guy. I'm not overly convinced that the Browns are a quarterback away from being competitive, but again, everything I just said, you can repeat here. This is a quarterback's league. If you think you've got the right guy, go up and get him. I do think Shedeur Sanders' floor is higher than Cam Ward's. His ceiling is definitely lower, though. I don't know that Shedeur Sanders is going to be, a revolutionary, game-changing quarterback in the NFL, but could you win a couple games with him? Could you get 9-10 wins, make a playoff run? Sure. I think that's entirely possible, and Cleveland seems really, really high on Sanders, so going against my gut instincts that tell me otherwise, the Cleveland Browns will draft a quarterback this time around. And now the Titans at 3 are faced with the same question that they would have been asking at number 1 is, do you take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter? Probably 1 and 2 in terms of true talent in this class. Both could be premier defensive players. Travis Hunter also has the possibility to play wide receiver at a high level, and it sounds like a lot of teams at the Combine value him more as a receiver, which I found pretty interesting because I always thought, from my own evaluations, I always thought he was much better as a corner than he was as a receiver, but it's definitely a very unique player that somebody is going to draft, and someone will have to figure out what the best course of action is with Travis Hunter, if that's at wide receiver exclusively or corner exclusively, or if you do mix him in on both sides of the ball. It'll be very interesting to see what Travis Hunter's career looks like. And I say all this to say, I think the Titans are still going to draft Abdul Carter at number 3. The Titans have had some serious trouble getting to the passer in recent years, and you've got guys like C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence in your division. You need to get to the passer, so I think Abdul Carter makes a lot of sense for the Titans, and the Patriots is one where I think it gets really interesting. yes, Travis Hunter is here, but do they go Travis Hunter? Is the other thing. It's really interesting to me because I think there are a number of different ways that the Patriots could go, and I think it's really hard to read Mike Vrabel and what he likes and what he values in prospects. And as much as I want to talk myself out of taking Travis Hunter here just because, the narrative would be fun, I think it is going to be Travis Hunter if the board falls this way. And I think it would be as wide receiver for the Patriots primarily, with him switching in to play like nickel, I think. He'd be used more in sub packages defensively, I think. If he's drafted by the Patriots, I think 100% they are drafting him to be a wide receiver more than a corner. And I think that works out very well for the Patriots in this instance. So the Jaguars at 5, I think it's going to be Mason Graham. They need some interior help for sure. They need defensive help in general. And Mason Graham is another guy that is really, really high on my list in terms of overall prospect. I think he's a very, very good player. I think he could be a starter on day one. There's not really much to say about Mason Graham other than, this guy is really good, and we've known he's really good for a very long time now. So Mason Graham to the Jaguars, I think, makes a lot of sense. Now, at number 6, with the Raiders, I've read conflicting reports about, if they're going offense or defense. It doesn't sound like a lot of people know specifically what they're going to do. The Raiders sound like a team that we're going to have to wait for free agency to play out to really have a better understanding of what they're going for. But, and hear me out on this, I think they go Ashton Genty, and I don't think they look back. The Raiders, since trading Josh Jacobs, the run game has suffered tremendously. And yes, they need a quarterback, and they could use some help on the offensive line, and they could use some help with receivers, and, this, that, and the other thing. I get that. But if they get a quarterback in there that's like a bridge guy, like a Sam Darnold or a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson or something, they're not trading up to go get Cam Ward. I think getting a guy that can just handle the offense, you can play conservative, you can run the ball, you can just slow things down. I think that would actually be hugely beneficial for stabilizing that team, to have the run game back and to just, have something you can rely on for cheap yardage. I think that would be a great pick for the Raiders to have Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers. Maybe you get a receiver in free agency, and then, whether you have a Sam Darnold in there or you go and get a quarterback next year in the draft, I think your offense is set, to see that guy succeed immediately. So I think Ashton Genty for the Raiders genuinely makes a lot of sense. I don't think he's going to fall as far as he has in some of my previous drafts. It sounds like running backs have done nothing but rise since the combine. So it's very interesting to think about. We may see 3 running backs in the first round. I don't want to put it out there and be, 100% confident that that's what's going to happen, but it sounds to me like it's 100% possible that we could see 3 running backs in the first round. So something to think about for sure. The Jets now at number 7. The Jets are another team for me that's like really hard to read, and I need to see what happens in free agency, because it's I don't like the Jets roster very much. Sure, you have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen and Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and but here's the thing. Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith are both free agents. Tyron Smith may have retired. I don't quite remember if he was the guy that retired or if it was the other Smith. I don't know. Some offensive lineman retired recently. I don't remember exactly who it was. But I don't want to be like, I don't know, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I really feel like the Jets need a proper answer at tackle, like a long-term answer. And I know they got that young guy, Olufashinu, I think. It was Olufashinu? Yeah, I think they drafted Olufashinu. But, I mean, that's one guy, right? And he's still really young. I think they need to do something on the offensive line, and I'm honestly going to give him Armand Membu. Now, Membu is a guy who's probably not going to play left tackle in the NFL because he's on the smaller side when it comes to tackle. But my God, he is an athlete. He has that first step explosiveness that you really, really want from an elite tackle, and putting him on the right side, put Fashanu on the left. I think Armand Membu is going to go a lot higher than other people think. The way that he has risen up the board, and he just keeps continuing to rise, especially after the combine performance where he balled out. I mean, he went absolutely nuts at the combine. And there was a stat that I read on Twitter where there have only been a couple of guys that are his size that have moved the way he did at the combine, and that was Tristan Wirfs and the guy on the 49ers, Trent Williams. And if you're in that kind of company, man, I mean, that's a really good tackle. And there were two guys at the combine that had comparable combine results to Tristan Wirfs and Trent Williams, and that was Will Campbell and Armand Membu. Will Campbell, I don't think, is going to play tackle in the NFL. I think it could be similar to Membu, where it's like, if he does play tackle, it will be right tackle, not left. But I think Membu was Campbell is more likely to play guard. But of course, we'll have to wait and see on that. But Armand Membu, I fully believe, will be going much higher than a lot of people expect. The Carolina Panthers at number 8. The Panthers are a weird one. I think they're probably going to be very defensively focused. I don't think they really see their offense as like the biggest concern. Sure, they could probably use another receiver. They could probably upgrade at running back, but I think there are options in this draft and in free agency that they can address to fill those gaps, because I don't think it's like a priority, right, for the Panthers. I don't think it's like, oh, we absolutely need this. It's a gaping hole. So I think it will be very focused for them on the defensive side of the ball, probably an edge rusher or a defensive lineman. And let's look here. I think I'm going to give them... Honestly, you know what? I think I want to give them my boy, Shamar Stewart. This might seem like a very high reach for Shamar Stewart, but I really like Shamar Stewart. I think he's an absolute just terror on the field. I think he can definitely provide what the Panthers need, and that is just juice on the edge. Somebody who can get to the opposing quarterback, really, really help them bring that defense to what it was a few years ago when it showed so much promise. But we'll see. There are a number of different options. I think they could have at 8. I think they could even be a trade-down candidate, but we'll have to wait and see. The Saints are another team that I think will go just primarily defense. And same thing with the Panthers. It'll either be an edge rusher or a defensive lineman. And looking at this list, James Pierce has apparently completely disappeared on some teams' boards because of off-the-field character concerns. Nothing reportedly illegal, more so just work ethic based, right? It's kind of like a Zion Williamson situation where it's like, God, he could be so good, he's so talented, but does he want to put the work in on getting better and being the best that he can be? So I think there is still the possibility that James Pierce Jr. Goes in the top 10, like he's been projected for a while, but in this instance, I think we're going to leave James Pierce off. Mike Green has some off-the-field concerns as well. We could see him fall a bit. Donovan Aziraku, I love. I am a huge, huge believer in Donovan Aziraku, but I don't think he goes quite this high. I think we're going to give the Saints Mykel Williams, another very talented edge rusher in this class. This class, the more I look into it, the more it's like there are some serious starters on the edge in this class. I don't think the depth is really there, right? I think it's still pretty top heavy when it comes to edge rushers. But there's definitely a lot of guys that I can look at and be like, yeah, you're a starter for sure. Like you could have a very long career in the NFL, whether that's as, a top tier Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, Daniel Hunter, Will Anderson kind of guy, or like the second tier below that. I'm not so sure, but very productive, right? I think a lot of these guys are going to be very, very productive players at the NFL level. So, again, number of different options for the Saints at that position, but I think Mykel Williams is the kind of guy that he has the athletic traits to be really, really good. So, Mykel Williams to the Saints. The Bears at number 10. I know it's a boring pick, but I'm going to give him Will Campbell. Will Campbell, just like Armand Membu, absolutely showed up at the Combine. He's an absolute athlete, 100%. Again, don't think he'll be left tackle, but I think, as a guard, right tackle, just the flexibility to move him inside or outside. The Bears, I think, would have no issue drafting that guy to help protect Caleb Williams, who I believe will be the Bears franchise quarterback for a very long time going forward. And the Niners here at 11 are probably pretty upset that Armand Membu and Will Campbell are both gone at this point. Could they trade down if the board falls this way? Maybe. But I think they're a team that probably goes for the more defensive look. They could take offensive line, and in fact, I think I will give them an offensive lineman, and I think they need a guy that's more of a true tackle than Will Campbell. Maybe even Armand Membu, that's just a plug-and-play guy that you can just put right on the outside of the line to protect Brock Purdy, really shore up that offensive line that has been kind of Swiss cheesed, at times. And Josh Simmons, I think, fits that role very well. Very, very big, very long arms. Probably the best true tackle in this class, because you're not moving Josh Simmons to the inside, but we'll see. I think the 49ers are definitely going for linemen on either side, whether it's offensive or defensive. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Josh Simmons is a fine pick for the Niners. The Cowboys at 12. Ashton Genty's gone. A lot of the tackles are gone. They could go edge. They just signed Osa Odighizuwa to a massive contract. Do they load up on more defensive linemen to really take advantage of that? I don't know. I don't see them going wide receiver. This is a tough team to pick for, I think. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give the Cowboys Jalen Walker. Obviously Mike Zimmer's not there anymore. I don't actually know who their defensive coordinator is now. Oh, it's Dennis Allen, isn't it? No, Dennis Allen went to the Bears. I can't remember, but Jalen Walker is a very flexible player. You can play him at linebacker, you can play him at edge. He's a ridiculous athlete. I am a huge fan of Jalen Walker, and I think just the flexibility that he provides for the Cowboys defense, I think is something that they will really value. And I think it's a great pick. I liked it, Jalen Walker to the Cowboys, so that's why they're picking Jalen Walker to the Cowboys. The Miami Dolphins is a team that's, God, they need so much. I think the only thing I wouldn't draft for the Dolphins is running back, and even then they're probably taking a running back in the later rounds. But for the time being, I really like the idea of getting just a solid starter on the defense that can play multiple positions, just a ridiculous amount of versatility in the secondary, and that is Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron, I think probably his best role is as a nickel, but he could play safety. He could play on the boundary. He can do a lot of things, and I think that is something that the Dolphins definitely need, for sure. Jalen Ramsey's only getting older. I don't even remember who their second guy is. Javon Holland is a free agent. I think Jahdae Barron makes a lot of sense for the Dolphins and what they're trying to do and what they need. So Jahdae Barron is going to be a very good player in the NFL. We'll have to wait and see where he goes. The Colts at 14. They definitely need help in the secondary. They're probably quite peeved that Jahdae Barron has disappeared. But Will Johnson is still here. He has fallen quite a bit compared to other mock drafts. And, normally I'd give them Tyler Warren, who I think is very, very good. But I think we're going to give the Colts Will Johnson, one of the better corners in this class, one of the corners that is healthy in this class. I think Will Johnson's very good. Not as flexible, not as versatile as Jahdae Barron, but still very, very solid. Probably at this point the third corner on a lot of people's boards after Travis Hunter and Jahdae Barron, but Will Johnson, I think, is very, very good. The Atlanta Falcons, I know very, very, very certainly, I feel very confident that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be drafting an edge rusher finally, after ignoring the position for so long. It's a matter of who, because again, I think there are a number of options for teams to draft edge rushers in the first round this year. I think we're going to see quite a few of them, in fact, get drafted in the first round. And I think this is probably the peak of where James Pierce could fall to, is 15 to the Atlanta Falcons. James Pierce, of course, as I mentioned earlier, an absolutely phenomenal athlete. It's just a number of character concerns for him. And now, the Arizona Cardinals, I understand that they need some defensive help. I understand that their O-line isn't great. But I honestly, I think I'm going to give him Tet. I think Tedora McMillan makes a lot of sense. I like Michael Wilson. I think he has the potential to be a solid starter in the NFL, but Michael Wilson's probably just not enough for that offense. Trey McBride is very good, but again, I don't know if he's enough. Marvin Harrison Jr. struggled at times this year as a rookie, and I think just getting another weapon in there for Kyler, even if maybe Kyler's not the long-term guy for the Cardinals. I think having a bunch of young offensive players in there, if they do move off Kyler Murray and bring someone new in, I think would be very beneficial to what they're trying to build there in the desert. So Tadawara McMillan falls all the way to 16, and it sounds like that's not entirely out of the possibility. It sounds like a lot of these wide receivers are going to fall this year, which is, certainly interesting, because we've had a couple of the last few classes where there've just been such a wealth of talent offensively, but we'll see. Speaking of offense, Joe Burrow, if by some miracle you are listening to this video, I would like to deeply apologize for what I'm about to do, but the Bengals are drafting Tyler Warren. They tagged T. Higgins, and whether or not that's to keep him or to trade him, I have no idea yet. We'll have to wait and see. My hope is that they're trading him. I think being able to tag a guy twice is kind of ridiculous. It's very clear. Like, here's the thing. If you have to tag a guy twice, it's very clear that you want to use him. You want him to be part of your team. Just pay the guy at that point. I think that's ridiculous, but that's for another day. But Tyler Warren is a freak. Tyler Warren is very, very good. Probably a top 10 prospect in this draft class. And I think if the Bengals are going all out offensively, you may as well do it properly, right? Like, give Joe Burrow as many weapons as he needs and just hope to God you can figure something out defensively. But the way the board has fallen, I just think it's too good a value to pass up on Tyler Warren at this point. The Seattle Seahawks, I think they're a team that definitely needs offensive line. Of course, their GM has said that guard is the most overdrafted position in the NFL, so they're probably not drafting a guard. When we look at who's available at offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks has the flexibility to play guard if they need to. Probably more of a tackle. In real life, Gray Zabel is a guard, tackle. Donovan Jackson is a guard. Jonas Avainaya is probably a guard. Marcus Embo is probably a guard. I'm not super sold on what I'm seeing there. But what I am sold on is Jihad Campbell to the Seahawks. Jihad Campbell, a lot like Jalen Walker, is a very versatile, very flexible player. You can play him at multiple positions. He can do a lot of things for you on the defense. He's a freak athlete. Jihad Campbell, I think, fits very nicely into what the Seahawks want to do defensively, and could be a Jordan Brooks replacement who they lost last year. I can't remember if they traded for Ernest Jones or if they traded Ernest Jones somewhere else. I don't remember exactly where Ernest Jones ended up, but I think Jihad Campbell could definitely be a huge player for the Seahawks going forward. The Bucks at 19, I think this is probably another edge rusher. If I had to guess, I'm not like super sold on the DBs available. I mean, depending on if Chris Godwin is there or not next year, I think this could maybe be a receiver, but of course, we have to wait for free agency to figure that all out. And I think this is probably where Mike Green is going to end up, because Mike Green, still very, very good player. It's just the off-field stuff will probably lower his stock, and I'm not here to comment on any of that stuff. So Mike Green to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Denver Broncos, I think, are going to go offense. I think they're going to go all in on getting Brock Purdy as many safety valves as they possibly can. They do need some defensive help too, though, and Malachi Starks is right. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to give him Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks is another guy that's incredibly versatile. I don't know if he could play on the boundary. I wouldn't count on it, but he can definitely play nickel for sure. He can play both safety spots. And getting some other guys in that secondary with Patrick Surtain and what's the other guy's name? It just slipped my mind. The white dude. Riley something? I don't remember. The other corner on Denver, that's very good. Getting Malachi Starks in there, I think, would be absolutely nasty. And, maybe that's a rebuilding of the Legion of Boom in Denver. So Malachi Starks to Denver, I think, is actually very, very nice. Great pick for them. The Pittsburgh Steelers, now available. Defensively, I think they need a lot of help, despite the fact that Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt and is it Cameron Hayward? I think Cameron Hayward. Yeah. Those guys are all really good, but they're not very young, right? They could probably use some help. But I think there are options there for later in the draft that they could go for. So probably not defense. I think I'm going to stick with my gut on this one, and I'm going to give him Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka is not like, an overwhelming kind of guy, but he's definitely got a lot of upside. I think he pairs very nicely with George Pickens, and whoever their quarterback ends up being. I think that gives them a lot of options. The Chargers at number 22. This is where I think we see our second running back, and I think that will be Omarion Hampton. They do have Gus Edwards currently. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent, but it sounds like they're going to try and bring him back. But Gus Edwards, I don't think can be your second option anymore. I think age has really caught up with him. Age and injury has really caught up with Gus Edwards, and yeah, they could use a receiver. Yeah, their tight end situation isn't great. But Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football, and that team is built to run. So I think Omarion Hampton makes a lot of sense for the Chargers. The Packers at 23. This is where I think we see another wide receiver go for sure. They have stated they want a true wide receiver one. Well, the organization itself hasn't, but players have made comments that they need a proper alpha wide receiver. I don't think Christian Watson can be that. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field. And even when he's there, yes, the offense is better, but is Christian Watson really that superstar elevator? I don't think so. It's just a matter of who it is, whether it's Luther Burden or Matthew Golden. I think it's more likely to be Matthew Golden than Luther Burden, so that is what we are going to give them. Now, the Vikings at 24 is interesting. Their roster sucks. I'm going to come out and say it. The Vikings roster is not very good, especially defensively. I think the only position that's safe on their defense is the edge spot, despite the fact I think there are a lot of edge rushers that definitely have some promise in this class that would be tough to pass off on for most teams, but I think this is definitely a team that needs to do something about their defense. It just lacks talent at corner, at safety, especially if they lose Cam Bynum and Byron Murphy. Then what on earth are you gonna do? And then of course they also need a running back. I don't think Aaron Jones has much left in him, but I don't think, looking at this, I don't think I'd give them a Judkins or a Johnson or a Henderson at this spot. So I think more than likely it would probably be defensive line. And Kenneth Grant, I like him well enough, but some of these other guys just feel more intriguing to me. And so for that reason, I'm going to give him Derek Harmon. I think he's a real disruptor, really, really good player. I like the fit. I think that's a good shot for the Vikings. The Texans, I'm going to give him Luther Burden. Now, I understand that they also are a team that needs offensive line help quite badly. But the thing is, with Stephon Diggs very likely leaving, and Tank Dell, I love Tank Dell. Tank Dell's very fun to watch. I don't know if he's ever going to be that type of player again that he was. because his injury was just so brutal. Um, and I think the Texans have an opportunity here to get a serious difference maker in the first round to complement Nico Collins. And I think that's just too good to pass up. So Luther Burden to the Texans. It feels a little weird. Don't get me wrong. It feels like a little bit of a strange pick. But I think it does make a lot of sense for them. The Rams, if the board is falling this way, the Rams are taking Colston Loveland, like, without a doubt. Sean McVay loves tight ends. Cooper Kupp is probably leaving. But even still, like, Sean McVay just loves his tight ends too much, and I think Colston Loveland really fits the Rams quite nicely. The Baltimore Ravens, I don't think wide receivers is big a need as PFF here seems to. I think it's more offensive tackle for them or edge rusher. And in this instance, Kelvin Banks is here, and Kelvin Banks has the flexibility to maybe move inside to guard. I don't know if they'd really do that, but Kelvin Banks, I think, is a great pick for the Ravens. The Lions at 28. I think they have options for guard later. Kevin Zeitler, of course, is absolutely ancient at this point. And I'm not super sold on Tyler Booker, Tate Ratledge. I think the best guards in this class are all projected at tackle right now and will move inside at the NFL level. And I think there are plenty of options for the Lions to get a very capable, very good guard later in this draft. And for that reason, I'm going to be giving the Detroit Lions Donovan Eziraku. And good Lord, I think this guy is really good. He had a great combine. I've watched some of his tape at Boston College, and my God, this guy, I think this guy could be a hugely, hugely important piece of the Lions going forward. I think he would complement Aiden Hutchinson very, very well. He doesn't have to, do all the work himself. I think it's a fantastic place for him to end up. And, if the Lions aren't going out and getting Myles Garrett, I think this would be a phenomenal way to solve that second edge spot that they've been trying to solve for a while now. Just to lessen the workload on Aiden Hutchinson and just make everyone else's jobs way easier to have two very elite edge rushers. So Donovan Eziraku to the Lions. Number 29, the Washington Commanders. I think this is also a spot where they could go and draft defense. There's not really anyone here at wide receiver that I think they would go first round. I think second round they could go for a wide receiver, but right now I think I would like to give them a defensive player. Now, I'm not super sold on the corners that are left. Everyone's just hurt, right? I'm not super sold on that. I think it could be an edge rusher, for sure. Or, maybe a tackle. And you know what? Looking at who's here, I actually am going to give them Josh Connerly Jr. You got to protect Jaden Daniels. The offensive line was a serious question in the playoffs. I think that's a good call there. Kenneth Grant has fallen down the board significantly, and I think this is where that comes to an end. Kenneth Grant to the Buffalo Bills, who have needed some interior pressure for a long time. I think they could also be a team that drafts an edge rusher. Von Miller's only getting older. I'm not overly sold on Greg Rousseau or AJ Epinesa, and I think AJ Epinesa is only on a 1-year deal. So they could go for a proper edge rusher too, but I think Kenneth Grant falling this far is a huge opportunity for them. The Chiefs, I could see them going tackle for sure. 100% I could see them going for tackle. They definitely need help on the offensive line. They did just tag Trey Smith, so he will not be going to free agency. But here's something, because I want to get a little wild, right? I want to get a little bit wild as we lead up to the draft. Here's something that I think would be very interesting. I think they could go running back. I think the Chiefs could genuinely go for a running back. They probably go for a running back in the second round, realistically, but I think they could go for a Caleb Johnson or a Judkins or a Henderson. I think it's very possible. But I'm going to temper my expectations. I'm going to slow down on the craziness. And I'm just going to look around. I'm not super sold on the tackles that are there right now. I don't think they're going to go receiver. I think, honestly, Darius Alexander really intrigues me as a player, and I think lining him up with Chris Jones, I think that could be absolutely bonkers, and would sort of give them the same kind of medicine that they got treated with in the Super Bowl of Jalen Carter and whoever that other guy was. I forget his name already. Gosh, what is his name? Jordan something, I think, maybe. I don't know. You guys will very likely yell at me in the comments for forgetting that guy's name. But I think having Chris Jones and Darius Alexander would be very, very interesting. The Eagles. The Eagles are a team that this is a team that I feel like we need to see what happens in free agency for sure. I think they could also be a trade down candidate at this spot. But the way it stands right now, if they can't keep Mekhi Becton and they can't keep Josh Sweat or Milton Williams, I think edge makes a lot of sense for them right now. I think guard also makes a lot of sense for them in this scenario. But I think I'm going to... I think I am going to give them a guard. I think I'm going to give them Gray Zabel, who I think is probably the best guard in this draft. And yeah, I think that's it. That is very likely going to be the second to last mock draft that I do on this channel for this year. What pick did I get absolutely horribly wrong? Obviously, we still don't have quite enough information, but I think I had a lot of fun with this one, just getting a little bit wild with some of these picks. So I want to thank you, of course, for watching, and I hope to speak with you again soon. Goodbye for now.